Let's view on the watch page and see what happens here. And one, two. Skip that. And I believe we are live, which is not a bad thing. Mads, how are you? Alright, so I'm really not going to answer too many questions today. I think towards the end of this, we'll try to answer a bit. But the real reason we're here is to talk about about Blood Bowl's past, its present, and its future in some degrees, and really go over some of the aspects of the game and some of the things that you may not know and how really old this game actually is. So there's a lot of little things. There's a lot of things I can show you. I dug up as much as I could. So you'll get to see some old stuff. There's some things I wish I could find, but trying to get through here and really show you a lot of stuff, it's kind of hard. I've jotted down a ton of notes. Mario, how are you? And what I really want this to be is a definitive video where you kind of learn quite a bit about Blood Bowl and what it's about. So that's the kind of approach that we're going to take with something like this. So we're actually going to show you a lot of different things, show you things from a couple of different sets, how things have varied, how the teams have changed over time, some of the models from the beginning to where they are right now. So those are kind of the things that we really want to kind of do. So let's start and just keep it. Hey Robert, how are you doing? Getting ready for your big trip, I can see. And of course we have our one troll that always seems to love to start with us, but that's not a big deal. I can care less. Never worry about the gutless. So, anyways, this year is the 30th anniversary of Blood Bowl. That's right, 30 years that this game's been in existence. And Jervis, I believe it was Jervis Johnson. I have a bunch of notes here. Jervis Johnson was the originator who created this. He also stuck with the game for quite a long time, upgrading and doing what they call the living rulebook. This game has seen so many incarnations, and it is such a cult game that I can only tell you that it's probably, to me, one of the best games I've ever played. Released in 1986, and I've got some notes here, so I'm just going to read for you guys a bit, just to understand some of the background. Then we'll show you some of the stuff, how you can compare the new stuff to the old stuff, and so forth and so on. The original 1986 was actually cardboard. They were cardboard. The pieces were actual cardboard, and you would be able to play that set it was a foam board. It was a 3-part foam board. I remember I have it here somewhere. I just couldn't dig it out, and I feel bad that I did not get it out. It really was just very, very, very basic. The first edition, they did release metal miniatures later on to represent for the first edition. The pitch of this edition, consisted of 6 interlocking cardboard sections. It was really kind of cool. It was almost kind of like a foam. Had the 2 end zones, the center, and split halves. And they were marked by white lines. I think they were pink too. Again, I wish I could have pulled it out. In 1982, TSR published a game called Monsters of the Midway, which was very similar in the concept of Blood Bowl. According to many interviews, that some of that was the conceptually taking to put this together. In 1988, the second edition of Blood Bowl was released, and Blood Bowl away from the battlefield mechanics of other Games Workshop systems. So what they did was, this was based on the fantasy system, so it really had that kind of, they took from the Warhammer universe, so you had that real feel. But then they started to really make this into its own cult type of game, where the second edition included 28 millimeter miniatures of orcs and humans. The other sets were actual metal that came out, so you can actually get the humans later on in a box, which I have the boxes here, and I'll show you, because here we have the Orkland Raiders, okay, and they would come with a decal, and you can see very, very, very basic. And I'm going to show you these models, and just to show you how second edition was bad, it had a styrofoam board. Yes, it did. The third edition, which I have out, which we're going to compare with the fourth edition, which the fourth edition was basically a smaller, I almost call it like 3.5, because it was just a cut down edition of it, and it was really, really kind of neat. It was it had everything in it, but the models weren't the greatest. The third edition was my favorite. That was the first edition I ever got. Then I went back and I got all the other editions. Like was said, the second edition was actually just 3 thick gray polystyrene boards. It was really weird, and they had grooves inside it. That's the edition that I was talking about. That was almost kind of like foam. The other one was just cardboard, which interlocked. Later that year, though, in 1990, they came out with what they called Dungeon Bowl, which you kind of took the Blood Bowl rules and you put it into a dungeon. It was really kind of a neat mechanic in how it all worked out. And there was a magazine that came out, and you would get it every quarter. That was Blood Bowl magazine. It was really, really cool. In 1991, Games Workshop released Crunch, a light version of Blood Bowl. This was developed by Andy Jones. It was released along with Mighty Warriors, Ultramarines, and Space Fleet, and was predominantly aimed at younger gamers as an introduction to the Games Workshop hobby. The rules were simplified versions of those Blood Bowls, versions of those from the Blood Bowl's second edition. The game came with 24 plastic miniature and is considered a collector's item if you have it, and I do have Crunch. Again, it is locked away because some of those things are just very, very precious to me, and I have stuff that I lock away. But I always keep my third edition out because it was the first game my wife ever bought me, and for me, it's very dear to me. But in 1994, that's when they radically changed the game, the gameplay. They changed it from the complex, lengthy second edition games to a simpler, more dramatic third edition. Key changes were a set number of turns and turnover rules. So that really kind of kept the game span within 2 hours. The whole new versions, this is from the era of the third edition. So you would have been able to go out and get the Orkland Raiders. So not only did you get the plastic Orkland Raiders in your box, but you also were able to purchase another orc team, so you could play a bunch of different teams. And let's take a look at some of the different teams that you were able to get. You were able to get the Chaos All-Stars. And we're going to go into this a little further because I'm going to go off camera a little bit, and the camera's going to move a little bit because we're going to go over to the other side because I'm doing like 19 different projects, and of course we have our giveaway, so I got stuff all over the table. But the most important thing is that we're going to take a look at the different pitches. Here are the Dark Elves. Okay, these are all like some of the main teams, and they had a very big a book with a lot of storyline, and we'll take a look at that book too. Of course, the Dwarves, Grudge Bearers. How can you not remember the Grudge Bearers? They also, you were able to get, and I was able to dig this up, the actual, which I never finished painting, but the actual Blood Bowl itself. So this is when we play the tournament, we're going to be playing for, to immortalize someone with the Blood Bowl. And I'm actually going to mold that and make a championship trophy. Or maybe a belt. That'd be even cooler. Now, how can you play anything without the undead, the champions of death? Hi to everybody. Forgive me if I'm not answering any of the comments. I'm really trying to get a lot of this in. Now, this I'm going to save for the end because I want to show you the difference. And here are the Wood Elves. A team that I've never opened, believe it or not, the High Elves. And the High Elves were quite different. They had Phoenix Warriors, Lion Warriors, which are different from today. And, of course, the Marauders. Now, with the 4th edition, they added a couple of different teams. I also have the Chaos Dwarves, and I actually have a... Let's pull it up over here. I'll pull it out and bring it over. They have these. And that kind of leads us over into some of the other things that we're going to be talking about. So, let's just put this over here. I mean, you have to have the New York Midgets, a halfling team. You got to have that squishy team. The New York Midgets. But with the 4th edition, there was a couple of introductions. He will paint Doom at some point. Oh, I'm gonna... Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Shouldn't even be looking at that. Now, with the 4th edition, there was the introduction through the magazine and rules for the Norsca Rampagers. So you got to play a Viking team, which I thought was really cool. Now, let's just make some room over here. There's just so much going on this table. It's ridiculous. It's actually terrifying. And we're going to move this all over here. And of course, how can anybody play without probably one of the best teams that you could ever play, because they're just so fast. And if you can get them leveled up, especially in what we're going to be talking about very soon, and that is the Skaven. The Skaven are fast, and so they can get an ogre and just really nasty. Now, just to show you, they actually come out and kept the kind of box style, which is kind of cool. I hope they have the foam. I don't think they have the foam insert here, because I always like keeping the teams in the box. Yeah, I know. We're talking about Blood Bowl. You don't have to cry about it. But the Skaven the Scramblers, the Skaven Blight Scramblers. It's the same team, but this is the new edition 30 years later. So I'm excited to get these put together and get going with it. Now, the 4th edition was more of a living rule book. And the living rule book kept on going on and on and on. There was a living rule book 1 in 2002. 2003 was 2. 2004, they kept on making some small changes. The changes were there were changes to the core rules about referees spotting fouls and using wizards and league rules. They decided to overhaul the system a bit and kind of take out some of the special cards, and I'll talk about that. The second living rule book contained small changes with some focus on rules for passing and intercepting the ball. The third bowl, there were just some minor things. The fourth, rule changes, the minimum team size was 11, and making any other minor improvements. Vampires and ogre teams became official. Yeah, vampires are nasty, and ogres were nasty as well. Handicaps changed by removing half of the possible random results because they had various issues, which they did. There were certain things that would happen. Living Rulebook 5 changed some of the turnover rules, stun player rules. 2007, They approved the Slaanesh and the Chaos and the Underworld teams, but they were not included in the official LRB, Living Rulebook, released for lack of official miniatures, which was kind of hard. There was a sixth Living Rulebook, which showed you how to do drafts and some small minor changes. Let's see. The 5th edition, which we have now, which we're going to take a look at, which I must say is very, very nice. But there are some great changes and some very, very, very big changes in it. And I think you'll notice when we go over and we take a look at it, if you guys haven't gotten it yet. Now, this game was such a cult game that it also worked its way into the video game world. Now, I have a copy for my PS4. I have one for my 360. I have one for my Xbox One. I don't know why I have both. But it goes all the way back to the DOS machines, to the DOS computers, because in 1995 there was a version by Strategic Simulations, SSI, came out with a version. It was released by Microleague of Blood Bowl. It wasn't that bad. It was really, it didn't give you... Rob, could you refrain from saying 30 years? You're making me feel... How do you think I feel, Chad? But this whole thing, heck, you know, if I tried to do this too professionally, it's just not going to work. So just put a question in between if you have to ask anything, and I'll try my best to do both, because I always like to include everybody. The heck with making this like a big deal. But anyways, that game was pretty good, but it was kind of hard to move, and it didn't really give you the feel. It was good. I just don't think it was a great game. In 2004, though, Cyanide, who has continued to redo this game, came up with the game and called it Chaos League, and then it kind of transferred itself into Blood Bowl, and it actually became Blood Bowl. Actually, it was Chaos League, and what it was a rip-off of Blood Bowl. Games Workshop ended up suing them over the similarities. They ended up working out a deal, and they ended up creating the version that you see now, which is out for the Nintendo DS, the PlayStation Portable, Xbox 360. They all came out, and of course the PC. They were great versions, and the leagues were a lot of fun, because the best part of this game is not to play a one-off, but to actually play the game as a league. And I always found that the leagues were the best part of it, because then the team becomes very, very personal to you in a lot of ways. You know, especially with the Death Zone added in, it really makes a big difference, and we'll be talking about that very, very soon. It was also a comic book that came out in 2008, and it was called Blood Bowl Killer Contracts. It was a 5-issue miniseries. Now, also, to go further into the computer world, there was an actual game there was the Fumble League. And I can see I made some notes on it. Let's see if I can find where I put those. The Fumble League I played in for a while, and it was a very, very, very good league. And it's still going today. It's like this game. It's a very cult thing. You know, you really become entranced with it. Let's see if I can find out where I put those notes for the Fumble League. The Fumble League was an overhead, and it basically, everything was a round circle, and you would move everything accordingly. And people would play those games. I mean, it was just amazing. And it was a great program, and it's still a great program to this day. And I enjoyed my time in it. But there's nothing like playing the board game and having a bunch of friends. It really is the fantasy football that everybody looks for or is playing now. But it was done, I'm not going to say how many years ago, but quite a few years ago. Now, one of the things to do in the league, you can have one-offs all you want with the box set. But you couldn't do anything unless you had this very, very old, the 3rd edition of the Death Zone. Now, I bought multiple copies of this, and this is just one that was never really used. Now, just to kind of show you, here's a actual wood elf team. There was an actual program that you can have, and you can get all your stats, and as your team got better, you would put them together. Now, what Death Zone introduced was a lot of special star players that you can buy and have on your team and make part of your league. And it gave you a sheet, which, as you can see, I have this one still laminated, and it showed you league match sequence, pre-match. You can hire freebooters, roll for on the weather table, work out the gate, because the gate was important because that gave you money to invest into your team. Work out the handicap. If one person had more money than you, then the whole problem was that there was a difference, and there were things that would actually work out. So if you had, say you had $1 million and somebody else had $4 million, you had to work out on the handicap table, and that's how many times you would roll. And it would do different things. It would, if the team rating was a difference of, for instance, you worked out your team rating, you combined your money and how much your team cost, and it would give you a rating. And the difference could be anywhere from 0 to 101 plus. So let's just say 0 to 10. If there was a rating of 10 difference, then nobody had a roll on the table. But if there was 11 to 25 or 26 to 50, then that's how many rolls you would roll 2 dice onto this handicap table. And some of these things were just nasty. Like, if you rolled a double 1, the player on the opposing team with the most star player points has decided that he needs to be paid to take the field. So your best player could just not play the game. Then there were other things that basically gave you extra rerolls. Rerolls are critical in this game. You were able to bribe the ref. Some of your guys just decide not to show the game, or got caught with illegal drugs, or were running late and they don't show up to the second half of the game. I mean, there were just a lot of things that tried to balance the game. And it would go all the way up to 4 times that you could possibly roll on this thing. So if you got the right roll, it was something else. Then there was match winnings at the end of the game. You would figure out how much you won at the gate, depending on your ratings. Combined rating would equal up how much the gate is, and if you had 80,000 fans, you would get +5 and roll on this table. And then that's when, if anybody exceeded the star players, now your star player points you would attribute. So every time you killed somebody, you would get a point. Every time you scored a touchdown, every time you completed a pass or caught a pass, those players would attribute star player points. And what they would do is give you certain abilities. So from 0 to 5, you would not get you would not be able to roll on the skill chart. But if you got that 6 point, you would be able to roll and get a skill. Now sometimes you could get really lucky, and if you rolled high enough, you can increase a person's strength, a movement. So if somebody has a strength of 3, take an elf. If you gave an elf a strength of 4, along with an agility of 4 and a movement of 7, that became a very valuable player for you, because everything works out into these tackle zones. But we're going to be talking about that when we explain the game to Janice this Sunday, and we're going to talk about the rules in depth, and we're really going to go over, but this is just to talk about some of the things and some of the older stuff and give you a little bit of history of this fantastic and wonderful game. One of my favorite games of all times. Here are the sheets. I actually printed extra sheets, and they're back of the new book, but we'll get to that in a minute. And you would categorize, you would name your players, and it became very, very personal to you, because you would name these in And they felt like, you know, as you being the head coach, you name your team and everything else. And as these guys grew and became better and better, some of them you want to cut from the team if they had too many injuries, and some of them you would just want to, you know, would get better and better, and that would be your go-to guy. And when you need a touchdown or you need to do something, you just give him the ball and let him go. Now here's the book, Death Zone. Now Death Zone introduced the Chaos Dwarves, the Undead, Chaos teams, which were Chaos Beastmen and Chaos Warriors, Goblin teams, Halfling teams, and Wood Elf teams. And this is where leagues were built. And I have all these models, believe it or not. We have Morgenthorg actually over there. He's unpainted. I decided that it's time to paint old Morg. And these guys, when you get them on your team, these star players are something else, because they come with a tremendous fee. But a lot of them are just one-offs. I actually have in here the original sheet still all together. I would just take one and print it. So let's move this over here. And in this particular copy, believe it or not, oh look, I actually have the introduction to Blood Bowl, the actual original rules. Well, the quick how to play. And the random event cards I actually still have unpunched in the sheet for this one. And here is Count Luther von Draken. As you can see, star player card. And you can buy these guys, but they would cost like ridiculous money. I always like to invest in my team. Ugh. Magic items. And then they had the different trophies. You could have the Dungeon Bowl, the Chaos Cup, the Mithril Spike, the actual Blood Bowl trophy itself, the one that I have. Oh goodness, there's some stuff I didn't expect to find. There's a zombie, crushed zombie. And here we have some of these star player cards that still haven't been punched after all these years. That's a lot of years. And let's take a look. You can get Grim Ironjaw and Boomer Dribble Snot for the Gobos. The Skaven Mutant, Head Splitter, which was always good to have on a Skaven team, especially a new Skaven team, because he would really balance things out. So with this Minotaur, but the problem is that he has a skill where he can kind of like all of a sudden just look up in the sky and miss a turn. Hi Rob, your enthusiasm for this game is awesome. Like watching a coach. Well, thank you very much, guys. Let me carry on, because we're trying to do this all in an hour, believe it or not. But the Tree Man for the Wood Elves, he was always a big help. The High Elves had Pris Morion, or the Chaos Dwarves. I have him actually. Boy, I forgot how many of these guys I actually have. The Chaos Champion and Jordell Fresh Breeze for the Wood Elves. All this unpunched. But I wanted to show you guys. So that's how leagues were done in the old days. These cards would also, you would be able to draw a certain amount of cards depending on the difference between the teams, and these cards would help you. Now, I think the cards are a lot different, and I started to look at the new cards, and we'll take a look at those. But this is the old Dead Zone. So let's take a look at what we have for the new Dead Zone, because I ended up getting it. Excuse me for a second. All I have to do is reach around here. And here's the new book. Now, everything's in here, believe it or not, and everything's pretty close. You actually have where you can print out your player sheet, as you can see. Whoops. Let me get it over here like so. And the teams that are included because they're taking this new Death Zone Season 1, so I assume that they're going to come out with more Death Zone. They're trying to ease everybody into it. Right now, the Skaven are out, and you have the 2 Orc teams that come with the thing. But it looks like that they're going to be releasing the Dark Elves, the Dwarves, the Elven Union, which is a new team, Nurgle teams, which are new, High Elves, which we remember from the old days, Skaven, Orc, and Wood Elves. So those are the initial teams that are going to start. The leagues are the same. A lot of it explains a lot of the things that you can give, and the skills are pretty much the same as the old edition, and we'll talk about that in detail. And of course, post-match sequence where you are going to improve fame and fortune and so forth and so on. Just going through this, and just as I've gone through this, it gives you the history just like the old ones, which was really, really key because a lot of the lore and everything with some of these teams are just really good. Like it gives you an entire history of the Skaven, which is just a really, really cool thing. And I was really thrilled when I got this because this is what's going to make this game and make the league that we're going to do. Now, what I'm looking to do, and just to get off subject for a little bit, is that we're going to be doing a league. And I believe Robert, who's on here, Serpent Star players are included for the humans and the orcs in the base. Yes, that is very true. And they do give you some of the stuff in here to supplement it and make it a little bit better. But they're really going to kind of start bringing out in sections and really build up this game. So, of course, you can just spend more and more and more money, which isn't a bad thing. But here's the thing. We are looking to do a league, and I don't think that we're going to do it at the house. I was going to do it at the house. I'm going to talk to my local store, and we are going to broadcast live from the local store to try to get more people involved and help out a local store here in Mount Dora. So I think that'd be kind of fun. I think it'd be something that'd be exciting. And to see the league, how it's played, how it goes through, and how people develop their teams. We will be broadcasting every game. So I think that's a lot of fun. We'll post the league stats. You can root for a favorite team. It might be Janice. It might be Robert. It might be Justin. It might be Mike. It might be some of the other people that maybe we get involved in play. So I think it's something that'll be a lot of fun. Everybody will have their team, name their team, and just have a lot of fun with it. So I'm looking forward to doing that aspect of it. Of course, we're going to teach you the rules and everything. We're going to give you the Newbie 101 this Sunday, as Janice, who's never played this game before, is going to learn this game from the ground up. And I'm going to throw a beating on her because that's the only way she's really going to learn. Unfortunately, she's got to make a lot of mistakes before you can play probably the ultimate chess games. So I'm really excited about that. So why don't we take a look at a few things. Here's the old blocking dice, by the way. Let's just move these out of the way. I'm sorry if I got in the way here. And we're going to have to move. Now, the old blocking dice, now that is a clean hit, a pushback. That is a hit, but if you have, I believe, dodge, or is it dodge or block? No, it's dodge, that you would not take it. It would only become a pushback. This is, both people would go down, but if you have block, you can block it. And this, of course, is the dreaded die that you don't ever want to see playing this game. And you know something, I've been doing this and I'm not going to do it very well if I have autofocus on, so just bear with me for a second, folks, as I turn off the autofocus. And where is the Logitech camera? I hate, yep, sure enough, ugh, I hate that. So I can't show you anything because it doesn't focus. No wonder why. Okay, so anyways, This is the most, see, it still doesn't come out clear, but we'll do our best. This is the most dreaded die, and the thing that comes up and ruins all your plans all in one shot. The skull. You can calculate things and think that you have everything that you could and give yourself an 80 to 85% chance to succeed, but for some reason, the dreaded skull puts in a complete wrinkle in all your plans, and it's the worst thing ever. Now let's take a look at some of the miniatures through the years. Now we're going to use the orcs as our example, so let's take a look. Originally, it was just a piece of cardboard, a fold-over piece of cardboard, and that would be one of your players, and they would sit on a stand. It was not the greatest thing to play with, but it was a fun game. Double skulls, re-roll, double skulls. Yep, I've had it happen. It does happen. Now, the second edition came with, these were printed by Justin when he was 5, were these guys right here. And as you can see, the old style orcs, very old style, very old Warhammer-ish kind of feel to it. You know, just that kind of old Necromunda, not Necromunda, Gorka Morka, if anybody remembers that game, kind of feel to it. Then, as the next edition, you would be able to get a little bit better in the metal versions, which were, as you can see, the orcs here, again painted by Justin. And then, oh, I'm sorry guys, these were painted by me. These were some of the first miniatures I had painted in 1994. These were the metal edition of the orcs. Now, how much has things changed? How much has stuff changed? Well, let me tell you. Take a look at this guy. Alright? And I'll tell you right now, that is a work of art. And I can't wait to get these guys painted up. I mean, this is just... things have changed so much that these new teams are just works of art. Being able to sculpt and do things with 3D printers so you can get, you know, just conceive something in art and then just take and make a mold from it and come up with beautiful models like this. This is why Games Workshop is at its best. And you can see there's a bit of a size difference. Okay, there is a bit of a size difference. And it actually shows because it makes sense when we go over to the table. Which, why don't we do that right now and talk a little bit more about some of the additions that we have here. I've got to turn a couple things around, so just bear with me, folks, as we are going to come over, bear down, and look down. Hold on. And there we go. Let's get this out of the way. Well, as you can see, this is the new edition board. It is something to behold, and it is very, very beautiful, very well put together, and very great quality. Look at the dugouts, and they're two-sided now, which is just really, really beautiful. It gives you everything that you need, where it used to be on the old pitch, and we'll take a look at that very shortly. Let me try to get some of that light out of there and just move this up a hair here. You have your score, you have your turns for the first half, the second half, and your re-rolls. Here, if somebody was knocked out, reserves, excuse me, if you were knocked out or seriously injured. That's very nice, and as you can see, the same on the other side. Now, the new edition comes with cards, so you can understand what the humans do. And this is basically made up for beginners, as you can see. It gives you everything, but the real cool thing is that they give you some of the star players. And right off the bat, you got Morgenthorg and the big time orc and Griff, the very famous human player, and the mighty Zug. Matter of fact, we've got this guy right here that we need to paint up. Had him for a while, but I can't wait to see the new models because I'm going to get sucked into it and buy it regardless. Now here are, it looks like the special play cards, which aren't like the other cards that we had. There used to be a pile about this high. Now they've been reduced to each side for random events so that these things do not really cause mayhem in the game. And each side, I believe, gets to pick from them. I've already bought 3 sets, so we'll have plenty. Of course, your ruler, the new ruler here, as you can see, very well conceived. I mean, really, really nice. I like the plastic, where the old version had the see-through kind of plastic here. Now, here's the thing that, let me just put that into the box here so we don't miss anything up as we are putting things away. Now, the new blocking dice are a lot different. They have blocking dice for each side. You used to only get 1 set of 3 for the game, and you would have to share them. But now they have green and blue, so for the humans and the orcs, and I assume that they would just come out with for the other teams as well. Now, the real neat thing that I found is that there is a 2-sided board. And you can see I have the old one just to show you the difference. And you can see that this is the orc home field, which is really kind of neat. Really, really, really cool that they would include it on 2 sides. I wish they did that with the old one. Now, if you noticed here is the edge of the old board. This board here is actually almost 4 inches bigger, so it kind of makes sense because the models are actually bigger. So let's take a look at the old board from 1994. And here, as you can see, we have our pitch, and that's what it's called, a pitch. And we're just going to bear with me here as we're talking about this. And our rule book and our stuff. But most importantly, let's put the cover on the new edition. Oh, that didn't sound good. Now here you would have scoring on each side, okay? And the pitch is considerably smaller, considering that you would have a base like so, and you would put your guy on there. So you could see that our orc, who is considerably bigger compared to our old orcs, let's just bring them all out. He really dominates a square. So the bigger pitch for the more, as you can see, more expansive model or more expressive model. He almost takes up a whole 1.5 squares, where you can have any kind of pose here and it just doesn't take up. Even the big boy here, the big orc, he doesn't take up as much room as our friend here. Well, pretty close, but he is a special player and supposed to be considerably larger. Now, let's just leave this out. This is the box cover from the actual 3rd edition. As you see, this was, again, very personal. First game my wife ever got me. And we have the book and the basic teams that would come with it. Just to give you an idea, were the humans, the dwarves, the high elves, which come with the new unit. I mean, the Skaven, the orcs, and the dark elves. Those are included, but they actually included a couple more teams. So when this originally came out, those were the only 6 teams that you were able to play with. And of course, I would print out everything that I possibly could. So we would have numerous sheets. And as you can see, I always kept and bought 4 or 5 different sets. Because when we played leagues, you wanted to play as many games as you possibly could. Now, of course, this is a one-sided board, just like here. But the new one has 2 sides. So some of the people that were complaining and saying, hey, you know, this is an expensive game, you were paying the same price back in the day there, but because this was still a $125 game back in the day, I believe. It was either $100 or $125, if I'm not correct. And just to give you a look, I even have some of the cards here. Now, you only had one side here, and this was your player mat. You had your reserves, knocked out and dead and injured. You would score your first halves, and of course keep your rerolls. You had markers to do such. Here were some of the dirty tricks that you could buy. You were able to buy either dirty tricks, magic items, and some of these were nasty, and then of course random events. So you would have these all piled up, and you would pick from you would buy a certain amount of cards and only be able to have maybe 2 cards per game. And you would decide, well, do I want a dirty trick, a random, or a magic event, magic item? And sometimes you would pull 2, and sometimes it would give you extra training, which was good. Blitzkrieg, you could play it at any time, or you know, some of them you would play at a certain time, and they would help you score and give you that kind of bit of advantage that you needed. All the templates, as you can see, were done in this clear plastic, unlike now that they're see-through plastic and you can actually paint them. But these were clear, and you would just lay them on the board, and it would just tell you, okay, roll a die, and that's where the ball would go if the ball ever went out of bounds and such. So this old set here, as I've always said, is very near and dear to my heart, as it was purchased by my wife. But the new set has breathed new life into this game, and we're very excited to take this game, this very classic game, and really show you guys the ins and outs of a Blood Bowl league. And we are planning on doing a league, a tournament, a few things, all for the great prize of the Blood Bowl Championship. So let's head back to where I was sitting, and we will talk a little bit more about this. I'll answer some of your questions, maybe some of the things that you guys want to ask about. I get nervous taking this thing out, so let's put it back where it belongs in its sacred spot. This is a game that should never be removed from its sacred spot. And we'll just turn our computer real quick, and we will turn up our thing, move that up like so, and there we go. Here I am. All right. So I know I missed a lot of comments. I'm sorry. I was talking the whole time, explaining pretty much how everything works. So let's take a look here. Let's see if I missed anything. There's those star players. Haha, thanks for showing them. No problem. Skaven dice are out now. See, you got to have Skaven dice if you're a Skaven player. I don't care so much for the new dice. Yeah, I don't like those either. I think you're going to see me break out the old dice. I have like 6 pairs. Sadly, the new larger orcs are still a bit crowded on the line. See, that's the thing I was worried, and on the new board, but it's not too bad. Thank you, Robert, for saying that. We're looking forward to getting this out this weekend. Do you only have GW minis for the old teams, or do you have some of the third-party manufacturer team minis as well? I have everything. As a matter of fact, I think this was a third party. The Blood Bowl trophy was a third-party thing. Rob just stopped by to say hi. Sean, how are you? And by the way, hello to everybody. Really bad day, so looking forward to this. I'm sorry you had a bad day, Neutral. You're the only troll worth having around. We're glad to have you here. Serpum, Robert, Dave, Jens, Larry, Chad, Fallen Raven, how are you? Hendrik, Mayas. I wanted to make sure I said everybody. So let's take a look. Not much of a Blood Bowl player. Just played it on the PC. Maybe you'll convince me to get the new board game. If you do get the new... Rob, did you ever have the foam style board? Yes, I still have it. I just could not get it out today. By the time I got home, I just couldn't dig out. I have every edition for this. I have so much for it. I really wanted to show you guys everything. Instead, unfortunately, I was able to show you the 3rd, 4th, and of course 5th edition. But the first 2 I did not and was not able to dig out, especially in this heaping pile of games. The first, you know, those old editions were something else. And actually, I don't have any more. I actually donated. I made my own board. I actually took the pitch and we actually made a board with a stadium around it. It was gorgeous. We played so many games on that thing. It was really, really good. I put the grass on it. I painted all the lines in. It was a work of art. That's the only time you'll hear me say that about any of my work. Luis, how are you, my friend? So I hope this was helpful. I hope it gave you a bit of the history. And since 1986, that this game has been going strong. It's seen so many incarnations. It's seen so much life. From Vassal to Fumble League to now even on the PS4 and the Xbox One. You could play it on your computer. You can play it, you know, you can now, it's now out where you can just have this game and add it to your collection. Yes, we have it. Don't worry about it. It's fine. And, you know, add this fantastic game to your collection and make it a staple. I actually have 4 copies of the new edition. And the whole point is so we can play leagues. So I can get people to get involved, learn this game, become, you know, we used to do it once a year. It would be late August, and we'd probably go all the way to right before Thanksgiving, and everybody would look forward to it every year. And then we'd have a spring league. Because you were so drained by the time you were done with it. It's a beautiful, wonderful game. Von Deacon, how are you? Oh, come on, Rob. Do you really love Blood Bowl that much? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I'd have to say it's in my top 10. That's what I'll say. It is in my top 10 of all time. And take a look on the Dice Tower this year, because I'm going to be doing top 10 miniature games this year. And top 10 war games this year. And don't forget, War and Peace is tomorrow. Hour here, an hour on the Dice Tower. And then, of course, I'm going to be doing a lot of cool stuff coming up, because I actually have control of the Dice Tower from Thursday until Sunday, and I can do whatever I want. The Dice Tower Rob takeover. I asked Tom if I could do whatever I want. He said yes. But we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to do a lot of cool things. And like I said, I really wanted to show you, give you some background, talk about it a little bit, and really go in. I love to see miniatures replica of AT&T Stadium in Dallas for Blood Bowl. You could use a tablet for the big screen in the midfield. See, that's a great idea. Sir Kaz, how are you, my friend? Hey, Rob, Blood Bowl is one of the best games ever made, as long as you ignore the new edition and stop with the version that had Death Zone and special play cards. And stop with the... as long as you ignore the new edition. Really? See, I've got to play it for the first time, so... You know, from the things I saw, it looked like it was pretty much there. I picked up a second set of just the new human players off someone, and I'm going human in my league over here. Betchin Bears. Nice. Rob, do you prefer Blood Bowl or Space Hulk? Hmm. Hmm. You see, here's the problem with Space Hulk. That bothers me. At least this last incarnation. I believe it was the second edition or the first edition. I have all of them, by the way. Where you had Deathwing and then you had Gene Stealer. And I really liked all the stuff that you added into that because you were able to do different things with it. This edition, you play all the missions and pretty much that's it. I would like to see them come out with an expansion for it. Add the Magnus in there. Add the Cultists in there. Give us the rules to do this. And I think it's so close. I wish I could say, I guess you'll just have to wait for my top 10 or top 100 games of all time. New Troll, Roll Quest, Blood Bowl, Space Hulk. They might be there. Have to say, was on the fence about Blood Bowl, but I gotta admit, Rob, your love of this game is contagious and has me looking into picking up. Mario, the most important thing, and I think the thing that really sells the game, is making sure that you have the people to play with it. I really think that having the people get involved and watch them develop and develop their teams, it really, you may play them the first time, but the second time you play them, all of a sudden maybe they're playing the Skaven and the Skaven are fast, but they have no strength, but all of a sudden maybe somebody got a strength point. Maybe somebody got an extra skill or a prehensive tail or a mutation, and now all of a sudden they're almost unstoppable. I love my all snotling team. I've had one of those. I don't think I have ever won with them, but I guess I will not be able to play them in this new edition. Not Season 1, but I guarantee you'll be able to play them in Season 2. Great intro and background on the game. The idea sounds great. Well, thank you so much. I hope this helps a lot of people maybe make a decision, get to see the difference, and if you were on the fence about spending, $100 and something, you'll see that this is very much worth it. And I really, really think it was. I mean, I paid $170 for all that warfighter stuff. Okay, I paid $170 for the Blood Bowl stuff with an extra team. So for me, it's almost the same thing. Rob, have you seen Blood Bowl, this being played at any recent cons? No, I have not. Not this version of it. It's recently just come out. Gents, you can still play them. The stats are really all the same. Yeah, nothing has changed. You can play them. If you have the stats for them, the rules are there. That's a good point, Robert. I'm sorry about that. I should have brought that up. If you have the old stats, they will not change, because if you compare these stats that you have here with the stats that are out there now, the stats have not changed. You can do whatever you want, and it's really good. We are allowing older races that aren't out in our leagues and allowing proxies as well. See, that's the way to do it. You make your own rules. You develop your own league. You make it very personal, and you just have fun, because the human interaction with this game, if you like playing fantasy football every week, getting your team together and your players and stuff like that, and seeing what happens on Sunday, you'll love this so much more, because this is the ultimate fantasy football game. So I think that pretty much covers everything, and that's a wrap. I think we covered everything. Let's just check. Even the stats aren't in the new rule book or the Death Zone book. The LBR 6 is freely downloadable and has all the stats for all the races. So all you have to do is download the Living Rulebook 6, which coincides with everything with the new thing. So I think we covered it. I think we've done a pretty good job. I hope I've answered all your questions. I hope you all go out and get this game and give it a shot. I recommend it highly. And before I close this out, somebody asked a question. Chris James, will you play any of the new Warfighter World War II? Well, I'm glad you said that, because this Saturday is Rob Solo Game Marathon. The girls, the boy, and the queen of all reality are leaving just me and those two puppies all by ourselves. So, what else should we do? Well, I could sit there and watch TV all day, or I could play some games and do it live. So, I think I'll play some games and do them live. What do you think? You can join me probably about 1 or 2 o'clock on Saturday, and we'll be together until either you guys get tired or I get tired, whichever comes first. So I hope you'll join me this Saturday. Also, I haven't put it up yet. I'm still going through the logistics of the patron. And let me make sure, power saver. Well, just make sure I got the right thing here. Yep, I do. And we only lost about $120 in people this month, and that's okay. And we will get the box ready, and we will be doing the drawing either Friday or Saturday. We'll have to see which one will fit. We have everything here. Yeah, we might do God O Leader Saturday as well. I'll talk to you when I get back from the Dice Tower cruise. Have a great time. B17, Queen of the Skies, if you have it. Yes, I do. If I'm not around, not at work, I'll be there. Hopefully Sunday teaching Blood Bowl goes well. I think it'll go fine. I know the game inside and out, and we're going to let Janice learn the hard way, and that's the best way. So, with that said, I look forward to seeing you all hopefully tomorrow during the live War and Pieces, both here and on our very own mighty Dice Tower, as we start a new era where we are going to be really taking a look at war games, breaking them down, talking about them, reviewing, interviewing, talking to companies, getting stuff sent to us so I can give you guys a look at some of the stuff and try to get some of these new guys into wargaming. And we are going to be talking about the history of wargaming tomorrow as well. So as an introduction to the whole series, as you decide what we do going forward. And doing our War and Pieces every Wednesday night. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you for watching this. And most of all, we'll see you tomorrow.